please join me in welcoming our moderator, Raul Moas, Miami Director at Knight Foundation. As you all know, the support of Knight Foundation has been paramount and crucial for the development of our entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Miami. And Knight has also been our biggest supporter, the biggest supporter of Endeavor since the beginning. Actually, Knight is the reason why Endeavor was launched in Miami. So again, thank you, Knight, for all the years of support. And many organizations like Endeavor are lucky to count on their support and guidance. So welcome, Raul.
Hey, Claudia, how are you?
Doing great. Happy to see you.
Great to see you. I caught a little bit of that of the first conversation. Phenomenal discussion.
Yeah, it was so much fun. So also joining us are Endeavor board member and executive vice president of the Beacon Council, Matt Hagman, Maria Derchi, executive director at Refresh, and Eric Gavin, senior program manager at the Center for Black Innovation. So welcome all, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Nice to be here.
Awesome. It's good to get the gang back together. How are you folks?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm well. I was able to come to the office today safely and securely, which is a nice change of scenery. So we are good. We're in good health and we're thankful. Folks, I'm delighted to be here with you all. And I just want to jump right in. So Eric, actually, I just wrapped up a conversation with Steve Case, co-founder of AOL and the chairman of Revolution and Rise the Rest, who visited a space called Tribe on his tour a couple years ago. And he said that was the best part of his visit. And so if you could share with those watching and joining us today, what is a space called Tribe, now the Center for Black Innovation, and what's the magic behind it? Why did Steve and so many other folks love it so much? Why do they find community there?
Man, so it's a beautiful thing, actually. So Felicia and Derek, if you know Felicia Hatcher, Gary Pearson, created the space called Tribe originally to be a co-working space inside of Overtown, which was going to attract kind of unrecognized, unseen entrepreneurs who were in the local community and in communities, various similar communities throughout the Miami-Dade area, in order to kind of start to spur their growth and connect them with people who are either could be good resources, investors, or people who can help them shape their ideas in a more firm way. This transition has now moved into the Center for Black Innovation. So the Center for Black Innovation is now moving, evolving just outside of a co-working space into kind of more so of a campus. So we're trying to support more of the resources physically as well as kind of digitally. Obviously, coronavirus has shifted how we can offer those services, but the space is still here to be a kind of a catalyst for these entrepreneurs who are coming into the space. And we loved having people come in from out of town. So people have gone in. I know Brian came through a little bit earlier, showed some people around town. So there are plenty of people still coming into the space. And I think the biggest thing that happens is the people see people working here and putting in good work. And I think Miami gets a rep sometimes of not really being a place where people do actual real work. And it's a place where we kind of are doing that good balance. We're laughing, we're having a good time, but we're getting things done. And I think that's the most important part of what makes this place really special.
I love that. The culture. I love it.
Yes.
Maria, so you're at Refresh Miami, and you've been all over Twitter. And Refresh Miami is kind of this really interesting thing because it's OG Miami tech, right? You all were building community here before any of us arrived on the scene. But you've also evolved with the times. You've accompanied community in response to how community has grown and Miami Tech has grown over the years. And now now you're convening folks in a very different way, obviously, because of COVID, but nonetheless still stitching together kind of the social fabric that is Miami Tech. So could you share a little bit about your journey and what kind of is Refresh and where Refresh is playing a role right now in the ecosystem, in community?
Yes, sure. So excited to be here. So Refresh was founded 15 years ago by a gentleman named Brian. I've been running it for the last 5 years. And we were both Miami natives, have moved back here after college. And, it started innocently enough as a meetup group, and it's kind of grown over the years organically into what it is today. So we have close to 12,000 members. And so we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our whole mission is to educate, inspire, connect, and grow the tech and startup community. And so that has evolved, like as you mentioned, over the years. And so what used to be kind of just a meetup group is now kind of it's really the center of gravity for the community here. So we make sure that the community members are aware of everything that's going on in the ecosystem, from telling the stories via our news section to our community calendar, which features all the events that are going on around town, and our job board and our resource directory. And in the next few weeks, we're going to be rolling out a new platform kind of that will replace our website, which is really meant to better connect the community digitally. As the community has grown, there's still these tons of silos, both geographic and other. And so we want to provide an online platform that helps break some of those down. So we're really excited to roll that out soon. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Very cool. Looking forward to that. Matt, how's it going, man? It's been a long time, at least 24 hours.
It's been 24 hours. It's been great. It's great to be with you guys. Eric, Maria, it's great to see you.
So Matt, you're
Likewise.
in our prior chat, we were talking about kind of Knight, and you're the person responsible for getting Knight Foundation on this track of focusing on tech and the entrepreneurship of the startup community in South Florida. You've now entered a new role, an exciting role at Beacon Council. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about Beacon Council, but could you give us a sense of trajectory? Could you give us a sense of what's happened here in 8 years and how we got here? Because you've seen it from the moment when right after Refresh came into existence to when you joined Knight to where you are now at Beacon. You've had a really great kind of view of how this has grown.
Yeah, no, I mean, and to be in this moment we're in right now and think back to those days is just super cool. So like so many people who are arriving, in Miami right now, I too came here from someplace else, came here from Boston, didn't know a soul, and came here to work as a reporter. And for 10 years was a journalist here in Miami, most of that time at the Miami Herald. During that time, fell in love with Miami and wanted to be more involved in the life of the community, and had this opportunity to go to Knight Foundation. And so it was at the end of 2011, walked into Knight Foundation, and the Miami program at the time, it had previously been focusing on arts, which had become a national program. So the opportunity was to completely reimagine what Knight Foundation does in Miami. In fact, Alberto Ibargüen, the CEO of Knight Foundation, I remember he turned to me sitting in his office and he said, "Go talk to people for 4 months and tell me what we should do next in Miami." That was it, right? Other than you have to be focused, just pick one thing. And so then I thought, okay, well, I can do that. I've been a reporter for a long time. I'll go out and talk to people and report out the story. And came back and said, I really think, so this is early 2012, said I really think that an effort focused on building an ecosystem supporting high growth entrepreneurship is what we should do. And, there were obviously lots of questions within the foundation about if that's, where we should be placing our bets, because the foundation really never done that before. But off we went. The person who many who are part of this meeting may know, Ben Wers, who is at the foundation too. Off we went with the idea of building this ecosystem, and literally sat in the room that you're in right now, Raul, on the whiteboard, and mapped out what we thought the Miami ecosystem could look like. And to give some idea of trajectory, at the time, there were just so many more things to solve for. I mean, we're still early days, and there's so much more to do. But at the time, the priorities included, there was virtually no co-working in Miami, right? So in terms of an ecosystem, sort of a fundamental thing is a place where entrepreneurs can connect and gather, and there's virtually none. And at the time, where Fredo Fernandez had started the Lab Miami, and at this little location. And so we decided that one of the things we would do is join with a group that included Juan Pablo Capello, Danny Echeverria, Marco Ghiberti, to launch the Lab Miami in a much bigger scale. And the thought was, well, if we do this well, we'll be out of this business, because the private market will come in and things like that will be solved for by others. And that happened. Similarly, finding ways to connect and just create a sense of community and create a real belief. In so many ways, as we think about the trajectory, each of those things to different degrees has been solved for, right? Our mind isn't around that. And even thinking in the early days, of course, when we think about all ecosystems, need two things, right? Need funding, right? And need talent in a big way. Well, funding is a big issue. I think you could argue and think about trajectory now. If you're an entrepreneur with a good idea, you have a good shot at getting funded. All right, or just look at the pages of of Refresh Miami, over the last 2 weeks and see all the entrepreneurs who had new funding rounds. Right. So as we think about the trajectory, the range of things, even though there's so much to do, and Miami's still at such an early stage, that was so early stage that now the range of things we're solving for are getting more specific, even as they're really big and require a lot of work. Around talent, around inclusion, around sustainability, I would include too. Things of that nature. So as you think about the trajectory at that time, back in 2012, there was so much to do. And we're whittling down here. But what's so exciting more than anything else is the belief that, that it can be done here. And not only belief, at the time too, a feeling was, what are those things that you really need for an ecosystem? You need some home runs. You need to show it can be done. And as we look at this ecosystem right now, we have that. We have examples, whether it's Chewy, started in 2011, exited and IPO'd and now valued at more than $40 billion. Or of course, you just had Felipe and Nearpod with their amazing exit that was announced last week. We have examples now of people doing it in this ecosystem. And now we just need to, now with more and more people coming in, we just keep building.
That's phenomenal, man. And so I'm so glad that we were able to share a little bit about kind of what each of us is doing in the space and kind of how we got here. I'd like to get personal now. On the same call this morning with Steve, Steve mentioned you need people, you need capital, but you need culture also for a startup ecosystem to thrive. Would love to get a sense from y'all, and we can kind of round robin here in the Brady Bunch view. Anybody jump in as you'd like. What is one insider's tip, some inside baseball, that somebody who is just arriving to Miami, either coming back home, right, after spending time away, or coming to the city for the first time from, God forbid, Boston, not going to hold that against you, Matt, somebody who's never been to kind of Miami, which straddles both North and South America, what's one insider's tip you'd offer them to get them the kind of the ability to attach to place, to really feel Miami, all the Miamis, the multiple Miamis? So if you were saying you're the tour guide, this is what I would suggest you do to really learn and understand and perhaps fall in love with Miami, what would it be?
Maria, do you want to kick us off?
I think Eric went off mute, so I'm going to let him go first.
The social cues in the era of COVID are interesting. You look out for who took off the mute first.
Sure, I'll jump in. I think the biggest thing that speaks to me is don't be a tourist. Don't go around and try to look from the outside in and just get a glossary information, like pull information for yourself to interact. Like, spend the time to know where you want to make your impact, or who you want to work with, or what you want to do, and talk to the people at different levels within that vertical. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want funding, yes, you should go and talk to as many investors as possible. That's your prerogative. But you should also talk to other founders who are also in the same vertical or in the same lane, so that you can get a good understanding of where to go and how to interact in this community. Miami has some weird rules, unwritten rules that we talk about sometimes, but are not anywhere for anybody to pick up if you're not here and you're not in these conversations. So it's good to have that back and forth with different people at different levels, so that you can get a better understanding.
Eric, I love the focus on meeting other founders. I'll throw out two organizations that are kind of leading the charge there in many ways, like that are communities developed by 4 founders. One is called Hello Beauty. Danny Spikes is the brains behind that. Yeah. And it's a community of female founders, and not only CPG, but heavily oriented there. But if you're building a company, DTC, e-com, she's got a really great group of folks that she gets together regularly. The other person is Will Weinrop with the Local Leaders Collective. It's a group of founders that gets together in the forum style of YPO and EO once a month, just to help each other out. It's peer mentorship, peer advisory, it's friendship and coaching. And so if you're really looking for what Eric kind of just highlighted, which I love, is kind of a sense of who's here, what's here, and what are those, how does this place work? And you want to get it from entrepreneurs, those two organizations are phenomenal. Maria, I think Matt set you up beautifully before.
Sorry, my dogs were barking, so I didn't want to come off mute. It's hard to follow up, Eric. That was great feedback. I think, yeah, making sure you find some folks locally you could talk to. Maybe don't go to the touristy spots. Go to some of the local coffee shops and just sit and kind of people watch and listen in and get a real sense of the different areas. Thanks, Tom. Sorry, I was reading Tom's message. That's really nice. So yeah, I think when I lived, other than living in Miami, I lived in Boston and Chicago, and I remember I would go up on like meetup.com and just go to random meetups to kind of try to get a sense of different people and different activities, and so that was helpful for me. But yeah, or go spend some time in post-COVID world in the Domino Park in Little Havana, then go to Little Haiti and eat some amazing food. So try to seek out some of these like off the beaten path. Some of my favorite places are these hole in the walls that you have no idea, would exist otherwise. So kind of seek those out.
No shade to anybody who has a food and beverage establishment that is on the water, but the best conch fitters in Miami are not found in any of the touristy spots. You got to go a little bit more inland for that. Maria, I love that. Matt, what are your thoughts? You've fallen in love with the city. You've been here a real amount of time, right? You've been here long enough to have a sense of this place and call it home. What would you recommend to folks? What should they do? What should they be thinking of in order to get a sense of the pulse and attach to the place, really?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure if I heard, maybe I missed it, but Maria didn't mention go to refreshmiami.com to find out sort of what's happening and where to connect. So yeah, I guess I guess sort of just, I would have a spirit of wandering widely, right? And why I say that is that, in December, you're saying I've been here for a while. In December, it'll be 20 years. So, I got here in December of 2001 to work as a reporter. And what I found that sometimes people would talk about Miami as like a small town where everyone knows everyone. And actually, my experience has been opposite that. That my experience has been that the moment that you sort of go around the corner and you look some more, you find there's something else completely different going on, and have had so many experiences where I'm saying to this person, wait, you're here in Miami? Wait, you're doing what? And, so I just really encouraging a spirit of just continuing to reach out. My experience with Miami is, in fact, it's not a place where everyone knows everyone, and that there are all of these networks to reach out to. And so even as I am about to hit, 2 decades in Miami, I'm not sure at what point you become a native, but 2 decades in Miami, that I still have this sense of exploration, right? And a sense of discovery about the place. And so I would really encourage that. Just keep searching and keep looking, because, under each rock, you'll find some really cool stuff. And the other thing, of course, is a spirit that has just defined Miami is that no asking permission, right? A place that's just built on doing over and over again. There's no group to sort of look to for permission or to think what's cool and what's not. I mean, the city is over and over and been built on people coming here, as is happening right now, that aren't really looking around, but are just doing. And I think that's a spirit and a culture that we want to hold fast to.
Those are great points. I think when folks come to Miami and think of, Miami has this like outsized reputation, this outsized brand in some ways, right? And folks come here, they have a perception of the city. And the truth is the city is really young. It's about 70 years since like air conditioning and jets made this place kind of accessible and viable, as our CEO here at night, Alberto Barguin, says often. And in that 70 years, a lot has happened, right? And so like even in the last year, the cranes haven't come down. I haven't been in downtown often in the last year, drove by the other day on my way to the office. This place looks different. So to Matt's point about like, you turn the corner and there's like a new discovery, it could be in the physical kind of tapestry of Miami, that there's action, there's people building things, permissionless building in some ways, literally building the city out. And then there's a social kind of fabric of it. The social capital of the city is not so ingrained or so baked in that others can't come in and do it. You don't like the table that you're at, you don't like the table you found, build your own table, right? This city allows for that kind of mobility and that kind of jumping in. All right, so keeping with the personal trend, and the kind of the insider's guide to Miami. So you've just arrived in the city, and you're like, oh wow, this place is quote unquote diverse, right? There's a lot of ethnicities and languages and flavors and smells in this place, and you're not sure what to make of it. You're not sure how to kind of culturally navigate the city. What is one unexpected finding, perhaps, that somebody might say, oh wow, like I didn't realize this was here, or this might be here. So what's one unexpected surprise that the city holds within the tapestry of its rich diversity, that might, to your point, Matt, might kind of be like, oh wow, like I can attach to that, I can drive with that. And then what is something that folks should be mindful of? And I don't mean this in a kind of negative deficit framing kind of narrative of what Miami is not doing well, but what's something Miami folks new to Miami should be aware of. And I'll go first on that piece. I love my hometown. I think it's phenomenal. I think there are times where I just would not get in a car. And so as people get in cars again, like other major American cities, don't expect to go very far in rush hour traffic. So if you've got an appointment, and you even factor in Miami time, I would kind of get there early, or factor in a good commute. We've got some traffic in the city, which is a sign of health and growth and mobility. Perhaps we need more public transit, but I'll go there. Transit is a real thing that I just advise folks to be mindful of. Maria, Eric, Matt, what's one thing that folks can fall in love with the city, an unexpected, beautiful thing in the richness of our diversity that you would encourage folks to jump in on?
Do you want me to go first? I see.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So, we'll start with the things to be mindful of, right? And that's that Miami is such a young place. And if you want a city that's established, right, that has older institutions, that sort of found its way, if you don't want a city that's going through growing pains, then Miami's really not your place, right? And so be mindful of it if it's a place that is still evolving very much, and you have to be sort of aware of that. But that said, that's what creates the amazing opportunity that is Miami. And so what's rooted me here is I met my wife here. I met Danette here. And but it's certainly the thing that we both love about Miami, and turned me from as someone who was covering the city to want to be more directly involved in the life of the city, is that it's a place that's evolving before our eyes, and that we each can play a role in shaping it, right? There is that we each, even someone who's just arrived, sort of your hand is bending the arc of this city's history and trajectory, right? And that's something I think a lot of cities, that's not the case. I remember I was at a conference up in Boston, where I'm from, and I was up there for this conference, and I was talking to someone, and he said, and he's from Boston, and works at a foundation in Boston, and he said, I just still feel like I'm waiting my turn. And in Miami, there's no waiting your turn. And the amazing thing is that it's this remarkable work in progress, and this amazing mashup of people from all over the world. I mean, Miami is unique in that over half of our population was born outside of the US. Over 3/4 of our population, like myself, is from someplace else. So we're this amazing collection of people who are together making up a city. And that presents this really remarkable opportunity where each one of us can play a direct role in shaping it. And as you're a new arrival, you can lean in right away and have that role in shaping it, and that will be rewarded. That sort of initiative is really saluted and encouraged.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more, Matt.
One thing that I think is, I guess I don't want to characterize it as something that's good or bad. There are a lot of Spanish speakers here, and you should be comfortable with being in situations where you may not be able to understand and have an easy conversation with people. it's pushing me to want to learn Spanish. So I'm definitely, that's on like on my to-do list when things slow down. But I think that speaks to kind of being able to not only be comfortable with the fact that you're moving into a new place, but also be comfortable with the idea that when you go into these different spaces and you meet these different people, you're going to be challenged in ways that maybe you haven't necessarily been before, whether that's from the culture that you come from. I'm from Chicago originally. I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan before I came down here. The culture diversity was nothing to this caliber at all. I was thrown like a fish out of water. I have really enjoyed the journey of being able to meet so many different types of people from so many different places that has enriched my life in ways that I did not understand before. But it was that initial like, Eric, you need to be comfortable with meeting people like where they're at. That allowed me to kind of start leveling up and have a lot more richer of a life than I ever thought possible.
I love that.
So,
I love meeting people where they're at. That is so much a story of this place. Like this really is a city of builders. And so I think the common thread here to your point, Matt's point about folks being from other places, is that in many ways we've all chosen to be here. And in many ways, we're building something here, right? We've chosen to be here to build a better future, build a better place. And so there is that common thread, right? I think hurricanes bind us together, sports championships bind us together, but also this sense, this hunger, this ambition, this hustle, this grit, this wanting more. And so it might be kind of tough, maybe if fear gets in the way initially. But there is also this common language of grit, of wanting more, of seeking kind of something better for you and your family. Maria, would you kind of bring us home here? And we have a question from Vero as well, which we'll bring onto the screen. But if you can bring us home and also maybe offer some thoughts around how we can kind of position our cultural heritage as a strength.
Yeah, kind of going on off of what Eric said a bit. While there's a lot of Spanish speakers, I think people may initially bucket that all into like one culture, but there's so many different nuances between each culture. And then once you're here for a while, you'll kind of pick up on little phrases and you'll be able to identify the Colombian from the Venezuelan, from the Cuban, from the Puerto Rican, from the Argentinian, and pick up on these little fun tidbits about them. Like, there's this like a playful rivalry, or hopefully playful, between Brazilians and Argentinians. And so I think kind of being open to that and kind of understanding that, we're not all one bucket, and we have a lot of little facets about us. And in terms of how we can position it, the question I was asked, I think one thing I've heard a lot about is like for companies that have aspirations to go global, if you start here, you immediately kind of have a really good target market that represents a lot of different backgrounds and places. So you can kind of really get a sense of like how your product may do in other places pretty quickly versus maybe if you were testing it in another city that had a very homogeneous population. So I think that's something that we can really highlight for companies that have global aspirations.
I love it. Folks, this was real. I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot with some unscripted questions about the nuances of this place. For all those who are listening or watching and getting their feet wet with Miami, feel free to drop any of us a line. The Endeavor team can give you either our social handles or our email addresses. We'd love to help you just get a sense of what Miami is all about and how you navigate it. Folks, thank you so much. I think we're going to bring Claudia back onto the stage to bring us home and take us to the next panel.
Thank you, everyone. This was incredible. Thank you so much.